The rotisserie chicken was already cold when I carved into it. The steam long gone. Skin turned rubbery under the kitchen light. It had been a habit Thursday dinners. Not because we loved routine, but because that was the only night Kendra didn't have back-to-back strategy calls. And by calls, I mean lies, recycled and reheated like the leftovers she never ate. So when my phone buzzed and I saw that sterile little message, "Working late. Don't wait up," it wasn't surprising. What was surprising was how steady my hands felt as I tapped back a reply I'd rehearsed a dozen times in my head but never dared to send. "Tell Jake from accounting I said hi." That was it. No punctuation. No anger. Just the scalpel. I didn't need to press her anymore. She was already bleeding out and hadn't noticed. I placed my phone down next to the untouched salad and opened the laptop we shared. She thought she was slick. Clearing history, using guest mode, switching tabs like I wasn't trained to notice inconsistencies. But it wasn't about browser tabs anymore. It hadn't been for months. I didn't flinch as I navigated straight to the hidden folder I had labeled Q4 Deductions. Inside, cloned messages, desktop syncs, hotel Wi-Fi receipts, even a screenshot from a private Slack chat where Jake called her K-bomb. I had timestamps, screenshots, USB backups. Hell, I even had a photo of Jake's car in our driveway one night while I was stuck at the gym. Gym, my ass. I was across the street in my truck, engine off, watching them. And you know what the worst part is? It wasn't even the affair. It was the normalization of it. The slow erosion of shared jokes. The shift in how she said, "Hey," when she got home. The way she started locking her phone with a fingerprint after 10 years of no passcode. The way she laughed harder at texts than she ever did at my jokes. And maybe you're listening to this and thinking, "Dude, why didn't you just confront her?" Because confronting her would've made me the irrational one. That's the trick. The more calm you are, the more they squirm. Also, real quick, if this hits a little too close to home, or reminds you of someone you know, do us a favor and subscribe. Over 97% of people don't, and honestly, that one click helps us build more stories like this for guys like you. Back to the chicken. I didn't eat much, just picked at it while the air conditioner hummed, dull and indifferent. After a few bites, I packed everything back up, just the way she liked it when she came home late and acted like the world owed her grace for being so exhausted. Then I wiped the shared computer clean. Every login, every autofill, every connected drive and cache folder. Gone. Because this wasn't a reaction. It was a reset. I moved to the bedroom, unplugged the Wi-Fi extender she secretly used to FaceTime Jake from the bathroom, and dropped it into a drawer next to the tiny black box I hadn't opened since our 3rd anniversary. The one with the earrings I never gave her after she said she was too tired to go out that night. She was always too tired, but somehow had energy for Jake. What really killed me wasn't the intimacy. I'm not naive. People do stupid things. But I watched the way she smiled at his texts. The way she went silent around me for hours but answered him in 60 seconds flat. That's what hurt. That's how I knew I didn't just lose a wife. I lost the version of her that used to be mine. I checked the clock. 9:47 p.m. 20 minutes passed. No reply. Then, slam. The front door burst open like a cop raid. Keys clattered to the floor. Purse half unzipped. Jacket slipping off her shoulder. Kendra's hair was slightly windblown. Eyes scanning the room too quickly. Lips parted like she was ready to speak, but hadn't decided what to say. She didn't expect me to be standing there, mug in hand. "You're up?" she said too fast, her breath jagged. I took a slow sip of lukewarm tea. "Didn't expect you so soon." And in that moment right there between her half-blink and tightened jaw, I saw it. Not fear of being caught. Fear that I wasn't angry. That's what spooked her. Because fury is predictable. Screaming, crying, threatening divorce. That's the stuff she had rehearsed a defense for. But calm? Calm is terrifying. It means you've already moved on. She tried to smile. Cracked halfway. What was that text supposed to mean? I walked over, pulled the rotisserie chicken out of the fridge and said, "Hungry." She blinked too much when she spoke. That was the first tell. People do it when they're thinking too hard, when they're trying to act normal but their brain is sprinting through contingency plans. Kendra stood in the doorway like she'd just walked in on a crime scene. Except she wasn't the victim. She was the suspect, and somehow I was both witness and executioner, sitting cross-legged on the couch like I just finished watching Jeopardy. "You're awake." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. She wasn't ready for this version of me. She'd walked in expecting a dark house and a snoring husband, not quiet lights and the smell of black coffee. I tilted my head, pretending to squint at the time. Didn't expect you so soon. She laughed. An unnatural, high-pitched twitch of sound. Yeah, well, the meeting ended early. Last-minute cancellation. I said, stirring my coffee. Jake cancel on you? Her jaw didn't drop. It locked. A small, quiet tension pulled her mouth into something that wasn't quite a smile and wasn't quite fury. What's that supposed to mean? You brought him up? I shrugged, letting the weight of my words sit in the space between us. I gestured toward the kitchen. There's chicken left. I'm not hungry, she said, her voice quieter now. Her shoes were still on, which she hated, but she hadn't even noticed. Her eyes darted to the dining table, where only one plate sat, one fork, one wine glass half full. You didn't eat? I did, I said. Earlier. Didn't want to keep waiting. A long silence stretched. Her voice, smaller now. That text, why'd you say that? About Jake. I stood slowly, picked up the wine glass, and took a small sip before answering. Why do you think I said it? I don't know, she snapped, too loud. That's why I'm asking. I nodded, watching her unravel. She was trying to pick the right emotion. Anger? Denial? Innocence? She cycled through all of them with her eyes alone. But her body betrayed her. Her keys were still clutched in her fist like a weapon, hand trembling just enough for me to notice. I guess I figured, I said slowly. If you're going to lie to me, you should at least be honest with yourself. Her nostrils flared. I'm not lying. Jesus, Marcus. Are you really going to do this again? There it was. The playbook. Step 1, gaslight. Step 2, victimhood. I cut her off with a raised hand, the motion too calm to be theatrical. Relax. I'm not accusing you of anything. Her eyes narrowed. Then what is this? Conversation, I said. Isn't that what couples do? She stepped further into the room, finally kicking her shoes off like it would somehow signal normalcy. Look, I know things have been tense lately, but if you have something to say, just say it. I tilted my head. Funny. That's what I was thinking every time you smiled at your phone and said, just work stuff. Silence again. She looked over at the couch, at the blanket folded neatly on the armrest, at the books stacked in threes, symmetrical, obsessive. Her eyes moved to the corner where my work laptop usually sat. Gone. What are you doing? She asked. I smiled. You don't get to ask that tonight. Why not? Because tonight, I said, walking past her toward the hallway. I'm not the one who has something to explain. She didn't follow. Just stood there, alone in the living room that once felt like home, the hum of the refrigerator buzzing like background noise to her internal panic. And I knew right then. She hadn't come back to save the marriage. She came back to stop the bleeding. But I wasn't the one bleeding. Not anymore. It started with the black scarf. Silky, lightweight, something I bought her 2 Christmases ago in a boutique she pretended not to love. She wore it twice, then never again. Until one random Tuesday morning, she looped it around her neck like it was a new favorite and walked past me with a kiss that didn't quite land. The scent hit me 3 seconds later. Something citrusy, layered with that woodsy cologne that no bottle in our house could claim. I didn't ask. I just opened the laundry app on my phone and logged the time. 7:48 a.m. She called it a client day, said the team was heading into the field. When she got back, she dropped the scarf on the couch and disappeared into the shower. That was the first time I didn't move it. Just left it there, reeking of proof, hoping she'd notice that I noticed. She didn't. The next week, her phone started living face down. Subtle, but constant. Messages would pop, screen stayed black. I'd ask who it was. Work? She'd mumble, already walking to another room. Lately, the work texts made her smile more than I did. She used to tell me everything. Now I had to ask. And when I did, her answers were short. Choppy. Vague. The same way people talk when they've rehearsed a lie but forgot which version they told last time. At first, I thought maybe I was losing it. I even Googled how to stop being a paranoid husband. The first result said, paranoia is a defense against gaslighting. That one stuck with me, so I stopped guessing and started documenting. Every office trip? Logged. Every dinner she missed? Logged. Every time she said she was on a conference call but I heard no voices in the room? Logged. The shared Google Calendar used to be our coordination tool. She began blocking out events with vague tags: team alignment, Q2 strategy, client-facing block. One night, I exported the whole thing to a spreadsheet and ran a pattern search. Jake M. showed up 11 times. No one else showed up more than twice. The next day, I asked who Jake M. was. "Oh, you've met him," she said. "The guy with the lanyard and weird socks. Totally harmless." Harmless, right? She laughed when she said it, but it didn't touch her eyes. That's when I knew. Something had shifted. She was protecting something. And it wasn't our marriage. I bought a small USB keylogger and slipped it behind the home office keyboard one morning while she was in the shower. Took less than 5 seconds. I didn't even feel guilty. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I was collecting evidence. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was a suspect with a drawer full of lingerie that hadn't seen daylight in our bedroom in months. The data started to build quickly. Multiple logins to her personal Gmail during work hours. A folder labeled meeting minutes that had no documents, just screenshots. One of them showed a hotel confirmation. 2 names, hers and his. I didn't confront her. I printed it, folded it, put it in the back of my journal with a paperclip. The more she lied, the quieter I got. One night, she came home flushed and smiling, said something about a big pitch win, poured herself a glass of wine, and laughed at nothing on her phone. I just asked, "Want to watch that series we started?" She shook her head. Too tired. 15 minutes later, she was still scrolling. I caught a glimpse of her screen before she turned it. Message thread. His name on top. I didn't flinch, just noted the time. 10:41 p.m. The next day, I signed up for a dummy cloud storage account and began copying everything. Her drive, her synced folders. I started a file labeled Phase 1. Another labeled Leverage. She still thought I was being quiet because I was scared to lose her. The truth was darker. I had already decided I would lose her, but not without taking everything she tried to hide with me. And the sick part? It was easy. Because when people cheat, they forget who they're lying to. They underestimate you. They think you're too hurt, too slow, too emotional to play the long game. But I wasn't emotional. I was focused. And patience, as it turns out, is a more brutal weapon than rage. The next morning, she brewed coffee like nothing had happened. Used the French press I bought her for her birthday last year, the one she never touched until guilt made her domestic again. She even hummed, off-key, loud enough to be heard from the hallway, like she wanted me to register normalcy. Like normal was still a currency we shared. I sat at the kitchen island, watching her stir almond milk into her cup, like she hadn't burst through the door last night pale as a ghost. Her voice was too chipper. Her eyes darted a little too often. I knew this part, the reclaim the script phase. She'd downplay, dismiss, reverse roles if she could. Classic chess opening. The kind where you act like the king hasn't already been cornered. "So," she said lightly, like she was asking about the weather, "what was all that last night?" With the Jake comment, I took a sip of my coffee. "Just a name." She smiled tightly. "He's married, you know. 2 kids. His wife's a nurse. You've met her. The hospital gala? 4 years ago." "Ah, yes," I said. "The guy who kept touching your back during the buffet line." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be childish." I shrugged. "I'm not the one sneaking around like it's a spy thriller. But sure, Jake's married. So were we." Her lips parted for a comeback, but nothing came. That silence, that 2-second gap where her brain froze, that was the first honest moment she'd given me in months. I didn't press. I let her sit in it. "I think you've got the wrong idea," she finally said. "You're reading into things." "Am I?" Her face twitched, just once. A tick in her left cheek, the same one she used to get when lying to her parents about her GPA in college. I let the silence hang long enough for her to notice I wasn't pushing anymore. I wasn't playing. The game was over, I was just collecting the pieces. Later that evening, while she was out running errands, I made the final move. Her MacBook, locked, new admin password, entire user profile encrypted and archived. Shared Google Drive, emptied. Every folder she thought we co-owned, wiped or moved to a separate vault she no longer had access to. Photos, gone from the shared album. Especially the ones she thought she hid in the recipes folder. That folder with 0 food and a lot of hotel rooms. When she came home, I was in the living room reading. Not pretending. Not faking. Reading. She dropped her purse louder than usual. Waited for me to look up. I didn't. Finally, Something's wrong with my laptop. I turned a page. Oh, it's asking for an admin password. Did you mess with it? I didn't answer right away. Let the question hang. When I finally met her eyes, mine didn't carry an ounce of anger. Just cold confirmation. No, I secured it. Secured my laptop? Our laptop. Shared network, shared devices. Thought it was best to do some cleanup. Her face hardened. You deleted my stuff? No, I moved it. Out of reach. She stepped closer. That's over the line, Marcus. I closed the book. So is gaslighting your husband for half a year while playing footsie with a guy who signs his emails yours in Synergy. She flinched. She knew that phrase. Her voice dropped. This is revenge. I stood, walked over, leaned in just enough to make her blink first. It's not revenge. It's inventory control. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. I walked past her, slow and deliberate, letting my shoulder brush hers. Not by accident. The control she'd been clinging to, gone. She thought this could be salvaged. She was still fighting to fix something that had rotted through. Still imagining there was a version of this where I'd yell, cry, punch a wall, and then eventually, forgive. But forgiveness only works when someone wants it. I didn't, because the moment I watched her scan for damage, not guilt. After my Jake text, I realized something bone deep. She wasn't sorry. She was scared. Scared I might do what she always believed I wasn't capable of. Leave. Without warning. Without drama. Without needing to prove anything. Just leave. And now I was just tying up loose ends. She came down the stairs slower than usual, like her body already knew the day would kick her in the teeth. Sunlight bled through the blinds in neat little stripes across the kitchen floor, landing on the envelope I'd placed dead center on the table. Unmarked. Unsealed. Just waiting. She noticed it right away. Didn't say a word. Just paused by the doorway in that old sweatshirt she wore when she wanted to seem small. Back when I used to find it cute. Now it looked like a disguise. Her fingers hovered over the envelope for a moment, as if touching it might trigger some unseen alarm. She opened it. Didn't even sit down. Inside, 12 pages, neatly printed. The first page had the header, consolidated transactions, joint accounts, filtered activity. Highlighted were the 3 charges from the Windale Hotel. 2 during work trips she claimed were grueling. 1 during a weekend she said she spent at her mother's. Page 2. Her individual Venmo history, including 3 transfers to JM, for exactly $48.52 each time. She once joked that was the cost of whatever sin tastes like. Page 3. The rental car invoice. Her signature scrawled across the bottom, timestamped 3 hours after she told me she was still at the client's. Page 4 was where the real art began. Spreadsheet. Jake Q1, Q3. I made sure it looked like something she'd recognize from work. Tables, graphs, timestamps, formatted like a quarterly performance review. Except this one didn't cover marketing metrics. It documented infidelity. Rows and rows of data. Dates, hotel names, city locations, check-in/checkout times, even keycode screenshots where available. Each event was color-coded. Green for out-of-town trips, blue for local encounters, red for overlapping business and personal entries. I even added a pivot table. I don't know why. Maybe for fun. Maybe because it made her mess feel measurable. On page 6, there was a scan of a bar receipt. 2 cocktails, 1 appetizer. A signature at the bottom, K. Page 7, a photo of her and Jake in an elevator mirror, his hand barely brushing her waist. She's mid-laugh, not a care in the world. By page 10, her breathing had changed. Shallow. Audible. I watched from the hallway, hidden behind the wall, just like I had learned to do over the last 6 months. Observing. Recording. Calculating. She didn't scream. Not yet. She was still in the maybe this isn't what it looks like phase. Still clinging to denial like a drowning woman grabbing onto driftwood. Then she hit the last page. It was blank, save for a single sticky note in the middle. Black ink. My handwriting. Working late. I heard her chair legs scrape across the tile. A sharp inhale like the air had become knives. No footsteps. No slam. Just stillness. I stepped into the kitchen a full 2 minutes later. She stood at the sink, not moving, the documents clutched in one hand, the sticky note pinched in the other like it might detonate. Her voice, when it came, was shredded. You've been spying on me. I leaned against the counter. No. Spying is secret. This was accounting. Her eyes flashed. You went through my private stuff, my phone, my email. You used our joint card. I cut in. You logged into the hotel Wi-Fi on a synced device. You FaceTimed him from our bathroom. She turned, the documents rattling slightly in her hand. You've been planning this. I didn't blink. Since March. She gawked at me like I'd admitted to murder. Why didn't you just say something? I stared at her like she was asking why the fire alarm went off after the flames started. Because I didn't want the apology you'd rehearse in the mirror. I wanted the version of you who sees her own reflection and doesn't recognize what she's become. The color drained from her face. No more defiance. Just the slow, creeping horror of realization. She finally asked the real question. How long have you known? I didn't answer, because that was the wrong question. The right one, how long have you been pretending you could get away with it? But she didn't ask that, and I didn't offer. I just turned off the coffee pot, picked up my keys and left her standing there, alone, surrounded by evidence she never dreamed I had the discipline, or the cold, meticulous spite to gather. And all it took was silence. Kendra always believed she was likable. That was her superpower, blending charm with just enough vulnerability to make you feel like protecting her was your idea. She called it relational intelligence. I called it emotional camouflage. So when things started to tilt, she did what came naturally. She reached out. Her first call was to Caleb, my best friend since college, the guy who gave the toast at our wedding and once let us crash at his apartment when we got stranded in Denver. She dialed twice. It rang, then went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. She left a message. Her voice was soft, practiced. Hey, Caleb. It's Kendra. I think Marcus might have said some things that aren't exactly true, and I'd love to just talk. Clear the air. You've always been like family. Call me when you can. She waited. 10 minutes. Then 15. Then 40. No call. So she pivoted to a more vulnerable angle, my sister, Danielle. Danielle adored Kendra. Or used to. They texted memes, traded book recs, even joked about starting a podcast once. Sisters-in-law by force. Sisters in chaos by choice. Kendra texted her a short message. Can we talk? Please? I just need someone to talk to who doesn't hate me. Read. No reply. She sent another. I know you're upset. I get it. But this isn't all what it seems. No reply. It was the silence that unspooled her. Not confrontation. Not shouting. Just the quiet acknowledgement that she was no longer invited into the rooms she once moved through so easily. The bridges weren't burned in fire. They were lifted away, plank by plank, while she was too busy curating her version of the story. The next day, she stopped by Caleb's office. He wasn't in. His assistant told her he was working remotely for the week. A lie, probably. Clean one. That night, I watched her scroll through her messages, reading old ones like they were relics. Birthdays, group chats, inside jokes from the beach trip we took 2 summers ago. Every message was now a dead end. She had spent so long managing appearances that she didn't realize people were also watching her character. And mine. And when I told them months ago what I'd discovered, I didn't exaggerate. I didn't scream. I just showed the receipts. They believed me, not because I was the louder voice, but because they remembered who I'd always been. Steady, loyal, deliberate. And they remembered who she'd become, elusive, edgy, avoidant. That's the part that cracked her. Not the affair being exposed. Not even the documentation. It was that no one rushed to defend her. No one texted back, he's being crazy. No one called and said, let's hear your side. No one offered an out. She tried one last swing, grouping up the old friend circle on Facebook Messenger. Sent a cheerful long time no talk. Hope everyone's well. 3 people left the chat within an hour. The rest went silent. Her social reach, dead in the water. Because the thing about betrayal isn't just the act. It's the echo. And hers had started ringing in places she never thought it would reach. Places she used to feel safe. By the end of that week, she deleted all her social media. Not for privacy, for shame. And she still hadn't figured out the worst part. It wasn't that I turned people against her. It was that I didn't have to. She waited until I left the house. I could tell by the way she lingered in the hallway that morning, listening for the garage door to close, pretending to sip her coffee while her eyes darted to my keys. I didn't say anything. I just let the silence do the work. When I pulled out of the driveway, I gave her exactly what she was hoping for. The illusion of opportunity. 30 minutes later, she was sitting at the dining table with her laptop open, breathing fast, knuckles tight over the trackpad like she was holding on for dear life. She'd never been good at passwords, but she remembered the one for our joint accounts, Old Faithful, our wedding anniversary. Of course. She clicked through the tabs in a blur. First account, closed. Second, closed. Third, still open. Balance, $7.42. A sharp inhale. She blinked twice, then clicked View Recent Transactions. It was all there. Transfers, wire confirmations, ledger IDs. She scrolled down until she hit one line that stood out like blood on a white shirt. Transfer to Narrow Pines Management Trust, $146,750. Her brow furrowed. Clicked the details. The trust was registered in a neighboring state. Date of establishment? 6 months ago. She froze. Not because of the number, because of the date. 6 months ago was before our anniversary trip. The one she canceled last minute claiming something urgent came up at work. The one I took alone after she told me we needed space. That's when I started setting up the trust. Not as a reaction, as a recalibration. She clicked again, and another transaction appeared, this time to a business checking account listed under the same name. Attached was a document labeled Founder's Agreement. She tried to open it, but it asked for a code. Wrong access level. She tried again. Locked out. That's when she heard the door open behind her. She didn't turn around. Just froze. I walked in carrying dry cleaning. Casual, quiet, like I just returned from a walk in the park. She finally spoke. You moved our money. I hung the dry cleaning. I moved my money. You took it all. I shook my head. No. You're looking at what was left. She stood, heart pounding so loud I could almost hear it. You created a trust? Months ago? Behind my back. I nodded. Not behind your back. In front of your silence. Her voice cracked. You're not allowed to do that without me. I didn't need your permission. It wasn't your portion. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked at the screen again, searching for a loophole, a backdoor, some glitch in the matrix that would tell her she still had control over something. But there was nothing. Just the number. $7.42. I crossed the room, slow and calm, and leaned on the edge of the table. She stepped back instinctively. I looked her in the eye. Everything we built together? I took my half early. She swallowed hard. You can't just decide that. But I didn't just decide it. I prepared for it. While you were busy rehearsing excuses and booking hotel rooms with fake company names, I was filing the right paperwork, shifting assets, and quietly unplugging from a life you thought I was too weak to leave. She shook her head, backing up further. I wasn't going to take anything from you. You already did, I said. Long before the bank balance hit zero. She tried to laugh. You think you're clever. But courts don't just let people run off with money like this. This isn't over. I tilted my head. It was over the second you decided loyalty was optional. She looked at me, eyes wide, lips trembling. Not with grief, with powerlessness, the rarest thing she'd ever felt. Kendra had always known how to land on her feet, charm her way into rooms, pull strings, spin stories. But this wasn't emotional anymore. This was structural, legal, signed, sealed, transferred. She didn't realize that a man doesn't pull the financial ripcord unless he's absolutely sure the plane is crashing. And by the time she noticed the descent, I was already halfway to my landing zone. And she was still clinging to tray tables and window seats, wondering when the drinks would be served. At the office, people had always smiled when Kendra walked in, half because she delivered results, and half because she played the political game with flair. She remembered birthdays, laughed at mediocre jokes, made interns feel seen. It was her domain, a controlled environment where she could play confident, capable, and indispensable. But this Monday, the energy shifted. Whispers didn't stop when she passed by. Smiles felt tight-lipped. Even Rita from payroll, who once cried in Kendra's arms during her divorce, looked up from her desk and gave her nothing but a nod. And Jake? Jake was gone. His desk sat empty. Monitor turned off. No coffee mug. Just the laminated badge on the keyboard, like a tombstone. Is Jake in a client meeting? Kendra asked someone in passing. A shrug. He's on leave. Didn't you hear? She blinked. No, I didn't. That's when it hit her. No one was telling her anything anymore. At 2:17 p.m., an email hit her inbox. Subject: Internal meeting confidential. Location: 6th floor, room 603. Time: 3 p.m. Attendees: you, HR rep, supervisor. The kind of meeting no one wants to be summoned to. The kind where chairs are angled just so, not confrontational but not casual either. At 2:59, she stood outside the frosted glass door, smoothing her blazer and trying to slow her breathing. She knocked, walked in. Her supervisor, Nathan, gave her a nod but didn't smile. Diane from HR had a manila folder in front of her, hands clasped like she was about to read a will. "Thanks for coming, Kendra. Let's sit." She sat, crossed her legs, uncrossed them. Nathan cleared his throat. "I'll just get to the point. There's been some concern about professional boundaries and perception." Kendra kept her face neutral. "Perception of what exactly?" Diane slid the folder an inch forward, not opening it. "Your name has come up in connection with another employee multiple times. Jake McConnell." Kendra stiffened. "Jake and I work closely. We collaborate on strategy decks." Diane raised a hand. "That's understood. But a few things have raised red flags. A hotel receipt submitted under his travel report. A shared Uber from a non-work address. Screenshots of messages that were forwarded anonymously." She blinked. "Screenshots?" Nathan looked almost apologetic. "There's a printout in circulation. Someone in the print room saw your name next to Jake's on what looked like a private itinerary. Internal staff flagged it. Legal saw it. There's a record now." Her ears rang. The room started to blur at the edges. Is this a formal investigation?" she asked. "Not yet," Diane said carefully. "But we are conducting a conduct review. Discretion is key. We're not making any assumptions yet." Nathan leaned in slightly. "You're lucky your husband hasn't filed any formal complaints with the company. That would shift this from review to response." Her mouth went dry. She looked from one to the other, trying to find a face that might still be on her side. There wasn't one. "I didn't do anything unethical," she said finally, voice tight. "Nothing that affects my work." Diane tilted her head. "Even if that's true, Kendra, you understand that perception is impact. We're a leadership-facing team. Trust matters." She nodded, because what else could she do? Fight? Cry? Deny the undeniable? They wrapped the meeting with vague words. Internal discretion, monitor behavior, no disciplinary action for now. But when she stepped out into the hallway, the silence was louder. No one met her eye. She walked back to her office and closed the door, hands trembling. She checked her phone. No new messages. Not from Jake. Not from anyone. She was radioactive now. And worse, she knew the leak didn't come from some nosy intern. Marcus had never filed a complaint. He didn't need to. All he had to do was let gravity do its job. The fallout was natural. And now, her marriage was in ruins. Her finances were gutted. And the one place she thought she still had control, her work, was crumbling under the weight of a man who hadn't even raised his voice. The front door clicked open at 6:12 p.m. sharp. Her keys still made that same metal-on-metal scrape as they always had. But this time, it was her breath that caught mid-step. Because the moment Kendra walked in, something felt different. No music. No dinner smells. No lights except the ones in the hallway. Just one open suitcase on the hardwood floor, half filled with neatly folded clothes. A second one beside it. Black. Locked. Marcus was at the closet, rolling up socks into perfect military-grade cylinders. Shirt sleeves cuffed, expression flat. Not angry, not sad. Just done. She froze in the entryway. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer right away. Just zipped the bag closed and clicked the handle up. "Marcus, I'm leaving tonight," he said, still not facing her. She stepped forward. "Where are you going?" He finally turned around. "Somewhere that doesn't have you in it." The punch landed. Silent but direct. She faltered, blinked twice. "So that's it." He walked past her toward the hall closet, grabbed his coat, his boots. Calm. Rhythmic. Like this wasn't new. Like it had been rehearsed 100 times in his head. Because it had. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice cracking. "We can figure it out. People work through this kind of thing." He cut her off without raising his voice. "I'm not people. And this isn't a thing. This is betrayal on repeat." She shook her head. But we built this life together. The house, our plans. He stopped mid-step. I won't fight for the house. Or the car. You can have it all. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. It wasn't mercy. It was dismissal. An unspoken, take your toys. I'm not playing anymore. Why are you doing this? She asked finally, voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her. Really looked. With a calm so cold it burned. Because you were never mine to lose. You were already his. She stumbled back a step. As if that sentence alone had the power to knock the air out of her lungs. She tried to compose herself, wiping at tears that hadn't yet fallen. Please, can we talk? Just talk. Don't do this like it's business. Marcus reached into his satchel, pulled out a thick manila folder sealed with a black binder clip. He held it out. I already did, he said. With the lawyer. Everything's in there. She didn't take it right away, just stared at the folder like it might explode. What's in it? He shrugged. Separation paperwork. Financial terms. Clean split. I left out your additional expenses so you won't have to explain them to HR. Consider it my last gift. She took the folder with trembling fingers. You really talked to a lawyer? 2, actually. 1 for the structure. 1 for the exit. She clutched the folder like it was a bomb wrapped in cardboard. We were supposed to fix this. You said nothing. You didn't even yell. You just... I'm not here to give you closure, Kendra. I'm here to leave clean. She stepped in front of him, blocked the door like that would mean something. You can't just walk out of 13 years. He tilted his head. You walked out of it 6 months ago. I'm just catching up. Her lip quivered. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. You had months of chances. You used them to lie better. She looked down. Her voice dropped. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Neither did I, he said. But here we are. Silence. And then, like something inside her broke. She whispered, I don't want to be alone. He didn't move. You weren't. You just weren't with me. She stepped forward again, desperate now. Marcus, please. Don't go. Not like this. We can sit down. We can talk. I'll tell you everything, no filters this time. I promise. He leaned down, picked up the second suitcase, and looked her straight in the eyes. I don't want a confession. I wanted a wife. And with that he walked out, not slamming the door, not throwing punches, just rolling 2 bags behind him and leaving her holding a manila folder and every bad decision she'd ever made. She stood there for a long time, but he never turned back, because when you've already heard all the lies, the truth isn't worth waiting for. 3 weeks passed in a strange kind of silence, one that didn't just fill the house, but seemed to creep into Kendra's bloodstream. She moved through the rooms like a squatter in her own life. The furniture was still there, but the center of gravity had shifted. Marcus had taken his things, yes, but he'd also taken something else with him, certainty, stability, the mirror she once used to measure her decency. At work, no one said much. HR concluded their review, but never reinstated her credibility. Jake never came back. His name disappeared from the Slack directory without warning. Rumor had it he took a job somewhere out of state, quietly. She stopped asking. She barely slept, barely ate. The house echoed now in a way it never had before. Not just because Marcus was gone, but because her delusions had left with him. The tidy narrative she'd once clung to, it was just emotional. It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything, had collapsed. She stopped opening old messages, deleted photos in a burst of panic one night, only to regret it the next morning. Even the dog walker stopped replying to her texts. And then, one Tuesday, the doorbell rang. No knock, no FedEx truck. Just a small, square package on the mat, flat as a notebook, wrapped in plain brown paper. No return address, postmarked somewhere in Colorado. Her hands shook as she brought it inside. She peeled back the paper carefully, already sensing something final beneath it, like a trap waiting to snap. Inside, resting on a thin bed of black foam, was a single framed sheet of paper. At the top of the page, working late, don't wait up. The very first text she'd sent that night. Short, cold, detached. Beneath it, in bold, tell Jake from accounting I said hi. Printed in Marcus's old all-cap style, the one he used when making grocery lists or labeling moving boxes. But it was the third line that landed like a punch to the gut. Written in black ink, unmistakably by hand. You should have waited up. She dropped onto the couch without meaning to, the frame still in her lap. She didn't cry. Not at first. There was no dignity left to protect. No name. No return address. But she knew. It was Marcus's final word. Not loud. Not cruel. But surgical. A reminder that the moment she thought she was in control, she'd already lost. She ran her fingers over the glass, as if she could change the words with pressure alone. But they stayed. Fixed. Final. Upstairs, the closet was still half full. Some of his old books remained on the shelf. She'd left them there, assuming he'd come back to retrieve them. But now, she understood. He didn't forget them. He didn't want them. He'd left them behind as evidence. Not of his absence, but of his clarity. And Marcus? At that exact moment, he was somewhere along Route 70, deep into Utah, windows down, radio low, the sun cutting horizontal lines across the dashboard. He wasn't chasing anything. He wasn't proving anything. He was just gone. Not angry. Not broken. Just free. And Kendra, despite everything she tried, everything she thought she could still salvage, was left with nothing but the frame, the silence, and a text message that now read like a tombstone.